Hudson County View, live at Uncut. I'm your host, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, John Arhitis, and of course, with the latest and greatest in Hudson County news. So obviously in Jersey City this week, the main topic, really probably since the first reading a couple weeks ago, we've been talking about the inclusionary zoning ordinance. So that was a very long meeting, once again, 6.5 hours or so. And fortunately, we were able to have Councilman-at-Large Rolando Lavarro come in after sponsoring some amendments last night. And of course, he was a part of that entire session, so I have a feeling he'll have a lot to say. So we certainly are going to touch on that at length. We're also going to talk a little bit about NJ Transit. And when I say NJ Transit, I mean specifically their gas-powered power plant in Kearny is kaput for now. They're going to scrap those plans in light of something more environmentally friendly. That was announced at their board meeting last night, so we're going to give you some details about what happened on that front. We're also going to be talking about, in the Mile Square City, the 770 Jackson Street payment in lieu of taxes, of course commonly referred to as a pilot. And we know that there was a big feud going between the Board of Education and the charter schools. Mayor Ravi Bala and the Board of Ed were of the belief that they were to receive the entire 100% of the charter revenue, which was about $243,000. Of course, the charter schools felt that the pilot that was approved back in 2017 said otherwise. So we'll give you the conclusion there, but I believe a lot of you will find that to be anticlimactic. So we're going to talk about that and perhaps much more. But first, we're going to have the first word from our sponsors, and then we're back with Councilman Lavarro.
Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net. Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Good Friend Self-Storage in North Bergen, New Jersey is a fully climate-controlled facility equipped with state-of-the-art security, packing supplies, a Refer a Friend program, and multiple loading docks convenient for commercial use. Located just off of Route 3 at 4301 Tunley Avenue, Route 1 and 9. Call 201-867-2444 or visit us on the web today. Good Friend Self-Storage. Let us be your good friend.
Hudson County View, live at Uncut. John Arhitis, and as promised, I am joined with Jersey City Councilman-at-Large Rolando Lavarro. Councilman, thanks for coming on.
Glad to be with you, John.
All right,
Thanks.
Awesome. So, Councilman, obviously you've been spending a lot of time on the IZO, the inclusionary zoning ordinance, for really months, but I mean, it's been emphasized the past few weeks. And, before we really get into the heart of the issue, I wanted to just point out that whether it be the mayor or the city spokeswoman have had some fairly unkind things to say about you when speaking about the amendments and your proposals on this matter. So it seems to be my belief, and I'm sure many others, that they consider you a potential opponent for next year. So, I mean, how much thought have you given to running for mayor at this time?
Look, I'm contemplating all my options for 2021. I'm keeping everything on the table at this point, but all the talk around that as it pertains to this particular ordinance in particular is, I think it's mostly kind of distractions and from the issue at hand, which is the importance of inclusionary zoning and affordable housing and gentrification in Jersey City.
All right, so with that said, of course it's very early. I didn't expect you to show your hand just yet. But with that said, let's get to the actual heart of the matter. So, you proposed at least a handful of amendments. Only one of them worked out in your favor. So just, if you could just give us a brief rundown of everything that was before the council, why you thought that these were necessary changes, and of course the end result, which was, the one amendment coming through and then the majority of the original proposal remaining the same.
Yeah, so I mean, in order to go through all the amendments, I just want to say that the ordinance itself that was proposed by Mayor Fulop and Council President Waterman, that was put forward, is nearly identical in many ways to what the mayor put forward going back to May 2019. People talk about that's when this whole process started, kind of so to speak. And while there were some changes, the biggest thing that stayed in place that made it just a weak, anemic ordinance, housing ordinance, was all of the buyout provisions. One of our speakers from Monarch Housing spoke about that an inclusionary zoning ordinance, Monarch Housing being affordable housing advocates and developers of affordable housing throughout the state. They talk about the idea that the goal is to, in fact, produce affordable housing, right? Inclusionary zoning. But in fact, the ordinance itself is just littered with language in the ordinance that just allows for developers to find other ways to do anything but affordable housing. So there's things like, instead of doing affordable housing, you can buy your way out of it and do a payment in lieu. As you talk about the tax abatements as well, it's a payment in lieu of affordable housing.
Right.
You'll be able to do off-site units, and you'll be able to do community benefits and provide all of those sort of things in lieu of doing on-site affordable housing. So the amendments we proposed were essentially to close the loopholes there and eliminate some other exemptions that allowed developers to just kind of get completely waive their obligation to have any affordable housing or do any affordable housing as a result of the density increases that we would give them as developers for their project. And I say density increases. For the public, that means profit, right, for those developers. Millions of dollars in profit, in many cases, tens of millions in some cases.
If I could just stop you
Yeah.
quickly. So before we get into what didn't actually make it through, which I think you've mostly covered,
Yeah.
could we just talk about the rounding amendment, which did make its way through?
Sure,
And,
I mean, that was the most, and I introduced it on first reading, and it wasn't accepted then, and then people accepted it on the second reading. As I said then, it was a no-brainer. It says basically that if a developer, as a result of the inclusionary zoning ordinance, has to produce 24.4 affordable units through a 20% calculation, or whatever that might turn out to be, that would round down to 24 units, right, of affordable housing. But instead of foregoing the 0.4 units, we would ask for the financial equivalent of 0.4 units, and that would go into our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is what that amendment did. As I said, it was rejected on first reading, and when I proposed it, it wasn't hard to figure out, and it was a no-brainer. Like if you really wanted to get maximum benefit for Jersey City, that was the way to do it.
Sure. So anyway, like you were saying,
Yep.
all of these buyout provisions, as most people are calling it, did make their way through. We saw some of your colleagues mention that they felt like this, they already had a plenty of affordable units in their wards. They felt like this opened the door actually to even more development in some cases, if my memory serves correctly. So just, what's your takeaway? 4 hours of public comment, you put all these amendments up. I mean, did, for the most part, go the way you'd hoped. What do you think about that, and what's next?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I actually just mentioned there was one other amendment which had to do with just increasing the mandatory on-site. Right now,
Yeah.
that was passed last night, it only allows for 5% on-site. You can buy out of all the rest of it. So you can do 5% on-site and buy out or do off-site or whatever you want to do. There's different options to get out of it. I propose to increase those numbers, and in particular, increase it in downtown Jersey City.
The 10%, right?
At 15%.
15, and then it was the 10
Yeah, and
every
then
other
scaling
hotspot,
down throughout the rest of the city.
Yeah.
So when the other council people talk about having too much affordable housing, and frankly, it's completely misinformation and misdirection and all that stuff. They're not actually talking about facts. The reality is, in other parts of Jersey City, it's not that there's an abundance of affordable housing. There's not an abundance of affordable housing anywhere in Jersey City, frankly speaking. The reality is that in other parts of Jersey City, that people have lower incomes and the markets are yielding lower rents there. But there's still high rents, right? For most people of those incomes, there's still higher rents than they can afford. They're cost burden. For example, in Ward A, the Greenville section of Jersey City, where I grew up and still live today, 75% of all renters in Ward A are cost burden, meaning they spend more than 30% of their rent, 30% of their income on housing costs, on
Let
rent.
me stop you there, Councilman.
Yeah.
We're just going to take a quick word from our sponsors. We'll be right back, and we'll pick up right where you left off.
The Jersey City Medical Center. You know it for its award-winning, life-saving ambulance service. It's also your health hub, with health and wellness locations staffed with certified professionals all through Hudson County. The Jersey City Medical Center, here to help you with your healthy, here when you need us the most. The Jersey City Medical Center. Visit us on the net to learn more. Jersey City Medical Center, Robert Wood Johnson, Barnabas Health Facility. Let's be healthy together.
Newport, the luxury waterfront community on the Hudson River, offers a quality of life you deserve in 10 high-rise rental towers with amenities such as the on-site Newport Path subway, light rail and ferry service, Newport Town Square, 3 playgrounds, dog run, upscale restaurants, retail giants like Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, and Target. Morton Williams Supermarket is just outside your front door. A health and fitness club, spa, skating rink, and medical facilities are also on site. NewportNJ.com. Enjoy the New York skyline from Newport Town Square. Manhattan is just one path stop away or quick ride through the Holland Tunnel. Nursery and private elementary schools all on site. 12-screen movie theater at the Newport Center Mall. Want to visit Newport? Stay at the Westin or Marriott Hotel. Go to NewportNJ.com for details. Newport has luxurious towers, great restaurants, shopping, New York skyline views, schools, playgrounds, a marina and yacht club, gym, spa, fine wine, fine living. It's incredible. It's you. NewportNJ.com. Newport. Live like you want.
Hudson County View, live at Uncut. Jadar Hidas, once again joined with Jersey City Councilman-at-Large Rolando Lavarro. So, Councilman, sorry that we had to cut you off for a second there, but you were just talking about Greenville and Ward A and affordable units and such.
Yeah, so the idea that there's too many affordable units, there's not. Like, that's why there's a waiting list at the General Housing Authority of 5,000 applicants for affordable housing, right? The rents are not, people's incomes are not able to keep pace with the cost of housing or cost of rents in Jersey City. I do just want to turn, and people know that, and that's why people turned out in huge numbers for that council meeting. 65 people came out to speak, 64 of them spoke in opposition to the ordinance and passionately, and gave their own reasons and talked about the gentrification. They talked about the potential corruption. They talked about selling out to developers. I mean, you can go as a new form of redlining. I mean, there were new things that were talked about that I wasn't even aware of as conversation points.
It was quite a sight to behold, yes.
Yeah. And then on top of that, we submitted over 700 petition signatures of people who said enough is enough, that let's put people before profits, and ask that we close the loopholes, eliminate all those exemptions, and extend the term of the affordability for this inclusionary zoning ordinance. You had Fair Share Housing, the statewide leading advocate on inclusionary zoning, come out and literally said on the mic that this may be the weakest, and in a city that prides itself on being a leader, said this may be the weakest ordinance of all inclusionary zoning ordinances in the state of New Jersey, right? Like,
yeah, no, they were quite...
That was pretty strong, harsh words on that in that regard.
Yes, they had a quite strong opinion. But on that point, both you and Fair Share basically said the same thing in the sense that you said the fight isn't over. So what does that mean to you, and what are the next steps?
Look, I think that what we saw is that people feel passionately about this because this is their home and this is where they live, and they feel like they're being pushed out. And so for them, for me, the fight isn't over, and for them, I'm not going to stop fighting because I want people to be able to continue to call Jersey City home. I want the folks who've made Jersey City what it is and made it so special today, the immigrant communities, the marginalized minority communities, and the working class, right? The hardworking folks, blue-collar folks, and who roll up their sleeves every day and just grind it out. They've made Jersey City what it is today, and we need to make sure that that stays, because that's what gives Jersey City its life and its vibrancy, and makes it such a unique and special place. So I'm not done with the fight. I mean, I'm not talking about just inclusionary zoning, but I'm talking about gentrification, and the fight for affordable housing, for a better quality of life, for people to have a quality of life, and neighborhoods and communities that are safe, education for their children that's of high quality where they live, to end the economic segregation in Jersey City and the racial segregation, and to bring equity and inclusiveness to the most diversity in the entire nation, which is what we deserve.
All right, thanks, Councilman. So
Sure.
Now, on a totally different topic, in the past couple of weeks, residents, specifically homeowners, have been getting their tax bills. Obviously, the municipal increase non-existent, but was there anything on that bill that has stood out to you, and something that perhaps you wanted to take a deeper dive into, or find out more information about?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously I voted against the budget, right? So
Right.
Didn't vote to authorize a tax increase or anything like that. I think we definitely needed to do a deeper dive and look at some ways to better spend our money, maybe even look at other reductions, given the challenges of our budget with the declining reduced revenues because of the pandemic, and expecting that we're going to see more of that coming this year. In hindsight, and this is all 2020 a little bit with the budget, there was the information that came out about the $11 million authorization from the MUA that the city received from the MUA, and then to find out after the fact that they raised rates by 9%. That's disturbing. It looks like a kind of a backdoor tax in some way, right? Borrowing from Peter to pay Paul kind of situation in this regard, and that was not in front of us at the time, and we weren't aware of those kind of that those kind of actions would be taken. And not surprisingly, it all happened after, in fact, the budget in terms of the 9% rate increase, and all of that happened, and became aware of that after the fact, after the budget was approved. So we certainly need to look into that and investigate all of those things. And I understand there may be other things inside the Municipal Utilities Authority that we need to be looking at as well.
All right, so look, we're several months removed now from obviously the George Floyd tragedy, which obviously spurred the defund the police movement nationwide, but especially here in Jersey City, as you and I both know well. So, I mean, what do you think about that movement, the possibility of using, retiree or other saved costs that you were talking about earlier this year? Is that still something you'd like to pursue in the future? Yeah,
absolutely. I think there's nationwide a move to do transformative change and to change the way we do police reform. When a lot of people have kind of hijacked the narrative around this and talked about, defunding the police and so forth, and the idea of terminating police or laying off police or reducing police presence, that's not what advocating, at least not here in Jersey City, for sure. Never have advocated for that. But I think we should look at our budgets and be able to figure out how we can reprioritize money, because we need to begin investing. And this is not actually anything new. It's something that I've talked about since I've been a long time in office at this point, which is the idea that you can't police yourself to necessarily safer communities. It takes investments in communities as well, investing in education, in social services, in mental health services, and all these other programs, violence prevention programs, that we need to invest in to be able to uplift the community. It has to go hand in hand at some level. And obviously, if we're doing our job and being able to invest and and job creation and things of that nature, then we're able to make those sort of investments that lift people up, then that should have a trickle-down effect of being able to reduce the amount of policing that you need, because you'll have safer neighborhoods and communities as a result.
We'll have to end on that note, Councilman. Sure. Just real quick, I know you said you're still thinking about action, but can you assure me today that you will be on the ballot in 2021 in Jersey City? Would that be fair to say at this point?
I would say that that's a likely outcome, yes.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you very much, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. We're going to take another word from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Most women who give birth recover without problems, but any woman can have complications after the birth of a baby. Learn the post-birth warning signs, such as fever, headache, chest pain, shortness of breath, increased bleeding, or thoughts of hurting yourself or someone else. Knowing these can save your life or the life of someone that you love. Trust your instincts. If you feel something is wrong, call and get evaluated by your healthcare provider. If your symptoms get worse or you do not hear back from your physician, call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room.
RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.
Pinto Properties, Jersey City. Shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces that address your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panapintoproperties.com. Panapinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
City I wanted to touch on before we call it a week, folks. So first of all, let's talk about Transit Grid, which was, of course, a gas-powered power plant that would have would have been built in Kearny. However, that has pumped the brakes. Last night, NJ Transit's board decided that they are no longer going to pursue this option and look for more environmentally friendly options, which is basically what I told you at the beginning of the program. So let me read you a couple things about our story from this morning. So At the board meeting last night, NJ Transit CEO Kevin Corbett said, "We're now in the process of reimagining this process to make it as environmentally friendly as possible." So, after a unanimous vote by the board, they're now going to do a request for qualifications that is ultimately seeking to come up with a new, greener design, and that's expected to happen by November 25th, obviously just a little over a month away. And ultimately, they want this new developer to start moving by the end of 2022, which, obviously gives them some time to play with. And this could create up to 4,200 jobs. So obviously that's an intriguing possibility. And now, this is a big victory. You'll remember almost identical timing last year. We saw Governor Phil Murphy, North Bergen Mayor, and State Senator Nick Sacco talking about how the power plant in North Bergen was actually going to be put on hold, and obviously that project hasn't moved forward since. So, 12 months later, we're having a similar conversation. And just as we heard then, we're hearing from environmental activists basically celebrating this decision. So, we heard from Food and Water Action Watch organizer Sam DeFalco, and he said the plan to build a massive fracked gas power plant in Kearny was a disaster for clean air and our climate. Communities across the state came together to tell Governor Murphy to find a better alternative, and yesterday's announcement shows that his administration is listening. And this was no small, it still is no small endeavor here. This is a $547 million project, again, transit grid. It's it would have been a 140 megawatt generator as part of their traction power system to provide electricity to Amtrak's Northeast Corridor. So, whether or not the cost goes up or down or how much it's going to power the corridor, of course, remains to be seen now that they're essentially going back to square one here. One of the first people to come out against the project, as he often does when it comes to environmentally friendly issues, was NJ Sierra Club Director Jeff Tittle. And the director said this is one of the most important changes the agency has ever made. They are now starting a process to look at alternatives to the fossil fuel plant that will include microgrids, renewable energy, and battery storage. New Jersey could be a national leader on using renewable energy battery storage to run its transit system. This cutting-edge technology would make the state a leader in green transportation. Now, this was something that you guys have heard about on and off probably for at least a year. As soon as the North Bergen plant finally was kaput, we started hearing about this probably just a month or two later, and the municipal governments here at Hudson County were not shy about expressing their opinion. Of course, the local Kearny Council, we also heard from Hoboken and Jersey City, and these are municipalities that all put resolutions opposing the gas-powered plant. We also more recently heard from Weehawken, Union City, North Bergen, which was just yesterday, and West New York, again, all putting up resolutions against this initial project. So where it goes from here, I guess we'll just have to wait and see for November 25th. But, an interesting development for sure, and a lot of green activists, a lot of environmentally friendly political leaders have been very, very enthusiastic to hear this news. So with that, we're going to take one more word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
You know those times when you need to see the doctor, but you just can't get to the doctor? So where do you go? Go to the App Store, download the Telemed app from RWJ Barnabas Health, and you see the doctor right away. From any mobile device, whenever you want, wherever you are.
Quality care, no appointment necessary. The doctor is online when you download the Telemed app.
Don't you feel better already?
RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.
Stevens Jersey City Ford, located right off of NJ 440 North. Across the Hudson Mall is your one-stop for all your automotive needs. Check out Ford's latest models like the 2020 Ford Fusion with its stylish looks and hybrid options, or the unparalleled high-performance 2020 Ford Mustang. The 2020 Ford F-150 Raptor is ready for those rugged off-road terrains with trail control. Need a mid-sized truck for your towing and hauling? The 2020 Ford Ranger will deliver. The 2020 Ford Escape is a luxury SUV that was made for comfort and adventure on the go. Returning is Ford's legendary Bronco, which takes you back to the true meaning of off-roading. They are now available for pre-order in our showroom or on our website. Let us help you find your next vehicle. Stevens Jersey City Ford, 201-432-7272.
Hudson County View, live and uncut. I'm your host, John R. Highness. Now, speaking of Kearny, I also wanted to touch on something that I had mentioned yet today, and that was Kearny Mayor Al Santos telling residents that the second wave is here and urging caution as COVID cases are on the climb in his small West Hudson municipality. So he had a Facebook post yesterday that I believe was pretty strong, so I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of this if you hadn't seen it already. So that post said, the second wave is here. A month ago, our community had a 7-day average of 1 new COVID case a day, and now we're at a 7-day average of 12, with 24 new cases in Kearny yesterday and 153 in Hudson County. We can't succumb to corona fatigue. Wear masks, socially distance, even at family gatherings, and regularly wash your hands. Stay away from large gatherings. Even if one of the promising vaccine candidates is approved next month, wide distribution will not be available until next year. We have to get through the winter without overwhelming our healthcare system. So there's more, but given we're short on time, I also wanted to tell you that with talk of the second wave, we've seen quite a few schools, at least 3 that I could tell you about in Hudson County, that have closed, switched to remote-only learning temporarily due to the fact of positive COVID tests. So let's talk briefly about Wallace School in Hoboken. We heard from Wallace School Principal Michael Shannon, and that was actually in an email to parents that was forwarded to me. And last evening, we learned that an individual at Wallace School is asymptomatic but has tested positive for COVID-19. We were notified that another individual tested positive this morning. And long story short, starting today, they switched to all remote learning, and that will be good through November, at least Monday, November 9th. Now, like I said, this is the 3rd school in Hudson County. We saw North Bergen High School and Memorial High School in West New York closed due to this virus. So we're going to see what can be done to try to alleviate the spread as cases continue to climb in recent weeks. Now, the thing that I mentioned at the top of the program was this pilot agreement that we've talked about for a few weeks now. So back in 2017, the Hoboken City Council approved a payment in lieu of taxes, again, a pilot, and it had $52 million in community givebacks from Bijou Properties, and that now has come to a point where revenues, about $243,000, would go to either the Board of Education itself, by itself, I should say, or it would go to the Board of Education and the 3 charter schools. But we saw Mayor Ravi Bala say a couple weeks ago that his belief, and he was on the council when this passed, his belief was that this was only for the Board of Education, the public schools. Now, we heard from 4th Ward Councilman Ruben Ramos, and he has been adamant that that's not the case, that when this was made, it had all stakeholders, which is all 4 school districts, in mind. And we also have heard from Dave Mello, who's a former councilman who was one of the co-sponsors of this resolution, and he said the same, that this was supposed to be for the 3 charters and for the Board of Education. And Councilman Ramos put up a resolution last night that would have allocated a small percentage to each charter school, with about 80% going towards the Board of Education. However, when it was all said and done, after over 3 hours of public comment, they ended up pulling the measure, and there's going to be a committee that decides on what happens next on this fairly important decision for the Hoboken education system. So I don't know where this is going to go, but we are certainly going to keep you posted, and we're going to keep a close eye on it. We're going to tell you all about who's on this committee, when they're meeting, and when the council will be voting again. I don't imagine that would be any sooner than next month, but certainly this is something that we're going to keep a close eye on. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us as always. We're going to catch you next week, so enjoy, stay safe, and talk soon.